Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time I'm going to run through the details of setting up a virtual machine so that you can run a guest Windows operating system inside Linux. This is something that many of you have asked me to make a video about, so let's go and get started. Right, here we are in Linux Mint, which is where we're going to be working in this video, although you could be using any x86 based Linux distribution. And the software we'll be using to run our virtual Windows machine is the freely available VirtualBox, which has got a website here at virtualbox.org. Now, VirtualBox is virtualization software, which means it divides a computer's resources between two or more operating systems. And this means that to run VirtualBox, you need a reasonably powerful computer with at least a dual-core processor and ideally at least 8 GB of RAM, because these resources are going to be split between two operating systems. Now, if you just want to use VirtualBox to test out another operating system, you can do a basic install very easily. But if you actually want to work in two operating systems at the same time, you want to say run Windows programs and use them as well as your Linux system, exchange data between them, etc., things like that. If you want to do that, you'll need a more complicated setup. And that is what this video is about. And so here, what we're going to do is to install VirtualBox, to download and install the Oracle VirtualBox extension pack to add extra functionality, to enable hardware virtualization in our computer's BIOS, which is essential if we want to install a 64-bit version of Windows in a virtual machine, to install our guest Windows operating system, to add the VirtualBox guest editions drivers to this virtual machine, to share some folders and the clipboard to allow data exchange between Linux and Windows, and finally to add the current user to the group VBox users, which will allow us to enable USB device support in our guest Windows operating system. So, let's start out installing VirtualBox, and there's various ways you can do this. One way is to go down to the menu and go to the software manager, install it that way graphically. The benefit of that is it's quick and easy, but you won't get the latest version. So what I'm going to do here is to use the download link on the screen. You can see there, go to Linux distributions. We'll get the latest version this way. We have to pick over Linux distribution we're using. Here I'm running Linux Mint 19, and therefore I need to pick a Ubuntu 18.04 because it's based on that. So I'll pick that, and it'll give us a file to download, a deb file there. So we'll save that file. There we are, it's downloaded. So we can now close down our browser, and I think I've got open here the downloads folder. There it is. So we can simply click on that file, execute that file, and click on install. And then put in our password. And there we are, it's finished. We won't reinstall. And hopefully, if everything's working, we will find down in the menu under, I think, administration. Yes, there we have an Oracle VirtualBox. So we've managed to install the latest version of our virtualization software. Right, here I am back again, and before we go to VirtualBox itself, sitting down there and run it up and do things with it, what we're going to do is to download the extension pack from Oracle for VirtualBox. So if we go to back to the virtualbox.org website and we go to downloads, you will see down here somewhere, I think not too far down this page, there we are, there's the Oracle Virtual Machine VirtualBox extension pack, which adds things like USB 2 and USB 3 drive support, disk encryption, NVMe support, etc. Very useful stuff to have. So we'll click on all platforms, it's the same regardless of what you're using, and save the file. And there we are, that was nice and quick. And we now will run up VirtualBox, because obviously we need to use the thing, so there we are, we'll run it up. And it has text which is a little small, so I'm just going to make an adjustment so we can see things more easily in video. There we are, that's slightly better. And we're now going to go to a file and go to preferences, and we'll go to extensions, and we'll click on the little plus arrow there, and we'll pick up the pack we've actually just downloaded and press on open. And do we want to install it? Yes, we do. We'll click on install. We have to accept the license, I'm sure. Have to probably scroll down and then accept the license. And we need to enter our password into this rather large box. And there we are, we've now successfully installed the extension pack into VirtualBox. Right, I've now rebooted the PC so I can enter its BIOS. This is because most modern CPUs are equipped with a hardware virtualization technology which Intel call VTX and AMD call AMD-V. Activating this technology improves virtual machine performance, and you must enable it in your BIOS if you want to run a 64-bit virtual machine in VirtualBox. So, as we're about to install the 64-bit version of Windows 10, we really need to do this. Exactly how you turn on hardware virtualization will depend on your computer. But here I press the delete key during boot to enter the BIOS, from where I can select Advanced BIOS Features and Virtualization, which I can now change from disabled to enabled. What we're looking at here is an older legacy BIOS. But if we turn to a more modern UEFI, we can access the same functionality, here by pressing the F7 key to enter the Advanced mode and going across to Advanced and down to an Intel virtualization technology, which we can change to enabled. And then of course, whatever system we're using, we'd have to go across to Save and Exit, and exit saving our changes. Right, we're now going to install a guest Windows operating system, and to do this we either have to work from a physical Windows DVD and install disk, or we have to have an ISO file. And so I've come to this page here from Microsoft. I'll give you links in video description, which is where you go if you try to download Windows 10 but you're in Linux. And here we can simply pick up that edition of Windows 10, and we'll confirm on that, and it'll hopefully give us a chance to choose a file. We have to tell it our language. For me it'll be English, and confirm. And this will hopefully then give us a link to download Windows. I'll take the 64-bit edition of Windows 10, and I could save this file. But as you might notice here, I've already downloaded this file earlier on since I saw you last. It's 5.4 gigabytes, so I haven't got to download it again. So we'll get rid of that, and we'll go to a VirtualBox, which happens to be running here for us already. So the next thing we need to do is to create a new virtual machine. So we click on New here, and we give it a name. We'll call it Windows 10. That seems a reasonably good idea, isn't it? It's already suggesting a folder it's going to put our virtual machines in, which is my home directory called VirtualBox VMs. I'm happy with that. This is going to be a Windows machine. It could be others if you wanted to, but clear Windows. It's guessed from a name we'd put in, and it's going to be Windows 10 64-bit. And again, we could pick all sorts of versions of Windows if we wanted to. But the defaults normally work very well in VirtualBox. So we'll go next on this. We need to allocate some memory. It's only allocating it 2 gigabytes. I've got 16 gig on this machine, so I'm going to increase that to about, say, let's give it a full half of the memory, about 8 gigabytes. And we want to create a virtual hard drive for our virtual machine. We'll do that. We'll use the VDI option. That's absolutely fine. And we'll have it dynamically allocated, which means space is only used up when it's needed rather than being taken as soon as we create the drive. So we'll do next on that and create the machine. And there we are. We now have a virtual Windows 10 machine. That was nice and fast, wasn't it? So next we need to boot up that machine. And the first time you boot it up, it'll recognize it hasn't got an operating system and ask you to find a startup disk, which we can do here. So this could be a physical DVD drive if we've got one in the computer. I haven't at the moment. Or I can go there on the end, and I'll just make this bigger. I've been trying to make the fonts work so you can see things clearly. And we'll add a virtual image like that. And we'll go to downloads, and in here, there we are. That's what we've just downloaded from Windows, or I downloaded earlier. That's a Windows ISO, and we will choose that, and hopefully from that we can then start. And what will now happen is that VirtualBox will go through a standard install for Windows 10. Now, I've got to the point where Windows is asking for a product key. Obviously, if I had a product key, I could enter it here. I'm not going to put a product key in here. As you might know, you don't have to have a product key entered into Windows 10 during the install to have it working. So I'll just click on Don't have a product key. and I'll continue on the install. We'll do a Windows 10 Home, accept the license. We want option 2 here, custom install, install into our unallocated space on our virtual drive. And there we are, Windows is installing. And here we are. I'd almost lost the will to live there during that installation, but yes, we've actually made it into Windows. There we are, welcome to Windows. I think I need to do a little bit of tidying up with it, or it's going to cause us all kinds of trouble, so I'll get on with that. Do you know, I thought of installing Windows 7 as my test copy of Windows. Might have been a better idea, isn't it? Anyway, I will sort out what Windows is doing and come back to you in the next section. Right, here I am back again. Windows seems to have stopped installing things, and we're successfully running a virtual machine with Windows 10 in Linux. We've got Linux Mint over here, but this window is running a Windows 10. But there's still things we can do to improve the experience here. Because, for example, if I go to View on the Windows window and do full screen, you'll see it first of all gives us a message about how we get out of full screen using the host key and F, the host key by default in VirtualBox being the right control key. Anyway, we'll switch anyway, and you'll see Windows would go full screen, but Windows itself wouldn't fill the screen. And that's because it hasn't got the driver to allow it to do that. So let's just go down to the bottom here, and I'm going to get out of things this way on that little icon there. So what I'm now going to do to put all the right device drivers into our virtual machine is to go to Devices and insert Guest Editions CD image. And this is basically a virtual CD of drivers for Windows 10 in VirtualBox. And it hasn't come up automatically, so I'm going to go to the File Explorer here and somehow get to this PC. Must be here somewhere. There we are, there's our virtual CD. And what should we use? I'm going to go directly, I think, to VBox Windows Editions AMD64, which is on a 64-bit system. And we'll hope that'll work. Looks hopeful, doesn't it? And that'll hopefully run. Yes, there we are, and we'll do a next. And it'll install this stuff, hopefully. That's all going to be done. I think that's going to be fine. Yes, we'll install stuff. We'll trust it. And I think I'll manually reboot in a second. We'll just finish on that, but that's all been put in. So we'll now come out of Windows ourselves. So we'll do a close down of Windows. Let's shut it down completely. It'll shut down. And here we've still got VirtualBox running. So let's now boot up our machine again. Last time we booted this machine, it was to install Windows. This time it should have it pre-installed. So hopefully it'll come up. And there we are. Hopefully I can get into this system. I'll get rid of those messages. There we are. I need to put a password in. And the Windows is hopefully now running with a greater range of drivers. So if I do a View and a full screen mode and switch, still isn't coming up full screen, is it? Oh, it is. I should have spoken not too soon, shouldn't I? There we are. It's working. So we've now managed to get into full screen Windows whilst we're in Linux, which is, I think, rather impressive, isn't it? Yes, we're definitely in Windows up there. We're running all the normal Windowsy exciting stuff. So Guest Editions has clearly worked for us. And to get out of that, I'm going to go back down to the bottom of the screen. I'm going to do that. So I can come back into, here we are in Linux, or I could nip back into Windows. So actually, this is going quite well, isn't it? And as it's now working okay, I think I'll come out of it again, shut it down, always shut down your virtual machines properly, and it'll take us back into Linux. Greetings. Here I am back again, and we're now going to be doing a bit of sharing between our Linux host operating system and our Windows 10 virtual guest operating system, which is currently powered off, as you can see. And we're going to go into its settings, either by clicking on settings here or going to machine and settings. And there's lots of settings here you can play with and experiment with VirtualBox. There's lots of fantastic control I'll leave you to take a look at. But particularly under General and Advanced, you'll find the Clipboard, which I'm going to enable as bidirectional, so we can cut and paste either way. I could enable drag and drop, I never tend to use that. And I'm also going to go to Shared Folders, and we're going to add a shared folder up there. And let's just make this a bit bigger so we can see what's going on. And we'll select a folder. Let's select, for example, our Documents folder in Linux. We're going to choose that, and we'll have it mounted automatically in Windows at maybe as the Z drive, Z:. In earlier versions of VirtualBox, you had to do a little bit more mounting in Windows itself, but this should work automatically. So we'll just go OK on that and OK on that. And now if we run up our Windows machine, here we are back in virtual Windows, and I'm going to get rid of these messages forever by clicking the Don't Show Again thing on the end there. And you'll see I'm running, again, Windows not full screen, because I find when you're setting things up, it's easy not to be full screen. And the view mode here is actually set to auto resize guest display, which is rather handy. So if we look now in this PC, if we open that up, I've added that to a desktop. There we are, it's mounted our Z drive, which is documents from Linux. So we've actually got access to all the Linux folders in documents in Windows and vice versa. So if you want to save files back and forth, that's really, really handy. So in fact, let's open up a document. That's a sample document there, and hopefully that'll work. From a video a long while ago. Yes, Windows has found something to open it in. There we are, and that works. And in theory, we can cut and paste between the operating systems. So I could actually take some text there and copy it in Windows. And I think I've got over in Linux something running. There we are. There's a test document in Linux, and the proof will be, can I paste into there? I can. That's amazing, isn't it? And we can go back the other way as well. We can take some text in Linux and copy, and we can put it back into Windows and completely mess up this document by pasting it into there. So there we are. We've set things up to share files and the clipboard between our Windows virtual machine and our real Linux host machine. Now, the final thing we're going to do is to get USB devices working in our virtual machine. And this might appear fairly straightforward. You take the machine, it's powered off, and you can go to settings, and you might have noticed earlier there's a USB setting here, and basically you add in filters using the little buttons over here to enable different USB devices. So for example, at the moment I've got a USB drive plugged into this machine, and I should be able to go up here and click on that icon, add in a filter which will pick up the characteristics of that device. And I can assure you that won't work. And I'm sure some of you have messed around in VirtualBox for a long time and found it doesn't work. Let's get rid of that there. I know it isn't going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because we aren't, as a user in Linux, part of the group with permissions to enable USB device support in VirtualBox. So what we need to do is to turn off VirtualBox like that, and we'll go back down to here where I've opened up a terminal. And we have to use this terminal command, which is sudo, to have a right to do this, and then user mod, and then it's going to be a minus little a big G, and VBox users, VirtualBox users, and we're going to add in our username. And our username is here at the front of the command prompt. Here I'm CJB, so space CJB, and if I press enter on that, I forgot I have to enter my password. Always have to enter your password. And there we are, it's done it. And now the next thing we need to do is to reboot the machine. And here we are back again in Linux, and it's picked up our USB drive. And we now go back into a VirtualBox administration, and VirtualBox is there. Our font settings won't be so good this time, but never mind. And we'll go to our powered off Windows 10 machine and go into settings. And we'll go down to USB. And now we can add a filter. I clicked on the wrong button showing you what went wrong before, but it wouldn't have worked either way. If what we need to go to is the second one down here. And if we click on the second one there, you will see here we've now got the Jet Flash driver plugged in and the other USB devices on this machine, which could be, for example, a printer. But I'll click on the Jet Flash one there. That'll add that in as a USB device, which can be seen by Windows. And I'll click OK on that. And if I now run up the Windows machine, and here we are, and if we open up this PC, and here you will see down here we have our USB drive, so we can access USB devices in a virtual operating system. And that is so important. As for example I said a second ago, it might have been a printer that's plugged in. You could now go install your Windows printer driver here. It makes life so much easier. So there we are. Let's celebrate by going back into full screen mode for Windows. And I've now shown you all the tips I've used to set up my own configuration where I work in Linux, but I run Windows when I need to access various Windows software. So there we are. We're running Windows, but if we wish to, we can come out of Windows and we'll be back in our old friend Linux Mint. Setting up a Windows virtual machine is for some people a critical aspect of a successful migration to Linux. Getting all the settings just right can also take a bit of time, a bit of messing around, and I hope that in that context you've found this video useful. But now that's it for another video. If you enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.